How's it going, everybody? um, yeah, it's me, Comic Crack, here with you to chat about a couple of things. Um, I don't know if I want to save that or if I want to maybe go with some other stuff. So, uh, I've got a bunch of stuff coming in the mail that I'm pretty excited about. My kind of purchases have almost completely stopped lately. Which is great. There's not an addendum to that story. It's just that they pretty much have. I've been to a couple of comic shops. One of the shops in town, Galaxy Comics, is moving. I was worried at first. I heard that they were closing down, and then no, they're just moving locations. They're moving up the road, like I think by like a block or something, to a bit of a smaller. I think it's a bit of a smaller space. So it's good to see that they're still around. Uh, as far as I know it, in the city, there's one shop I don't know about, whether it's open or not. The comic shops have survived so far. Like we're well into our, I don't even know what phase they're even calling anything anymore. I imagine that most of us across the planet are kind of in the similar phase with school being opened and that sort of thing again. Um, our cases have started to rise here a bit. We had pretty low numbers to begin with. And obviously, that could be due to a couple of different factors. There's more people going to get tested and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, we had two more deaths recently. So we'll see what happens. I'm assuming, like everywhere else, nobody wants to, what they say is, go back to a lockdown. Um, you know, Personally, I don't know how you can make any kind of promise like that. We don't really know what's going to happen day to day, but I am glad that the shops and some of the places that I've visited so far have still managed to stay in business. That's always great. The flea markets are open. There's a couple of changes. People gone. People went to another place. That sort of thing. But it seems like people survived so far, and that's great. I'm really glad. And so I still sell a couple of things on Discogs, and I recently had a fair-sized couple of sales go through. So I ordered a couple of things, and I'm still waiting for them. I backed the game Spinch on Kickstarter that I talked about before, Jesse Jacobs' game. They had a USB cassette version of it. Comes in a tape case, comes with a J card, comes with a cassette that has the graphics on it, and you just flip out a USB or a zip drive, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, from the bottom of the cassette. Has the game on it, has the soundtrack on it. I think it has a little sample where you can play a little bit of the next game they're going to be releasing. Something detective. I don't remember what it is. Um, so that's very cool. And Stranger's Zine, I know that Chris Chaos and Comics got his already. I think Damien might have ordered a couple issues as well too. Really excited about Strangers. It's been on my radar for a while, but I just haven't pulled the trigger. The newest issue has interview with Corbin in it, so that's the reason I wanted to give it a shot finally. Very curious to see what he's got to say. It's amazing that he's still going. That's fantastic. Been supporting some music lately, and I recently got a couple of tapes from. He's from Toronto. Andrew Zuckerman is his name, and they showed up last week. I haven't sat and listened to the entire things yet. This is Even This Old Town Was a Forest, so it's a kind of electronic, an experimental noise, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of well in my wheelhouse. So this one, Andrew Zuckerman plays synthesizers and electronics. Alia O'Brien plays the flute and organ on looks like 4 of the tracks. So I'm very curious about that. I've always the idea of kind of electronics and synths and kind of noisier elements mixing with more classical instruments, I would say, has always appealed to me. So I'm very curious. I heard a couple of samples on, obviously, on the Bandcamp page. This was all Bandcamp purchases, these two things, and very excited to hear more. So that's going to be really great. And then the other one I got, it was the last one that he had, a series. I think there's been a couple of them now. It's called Soulless Music, and I think what it is it's collections of kind of field recordings, pieces that maybe didn't get used on albums, kind of maybe thrown together isn't the right term, but put together in this kind of format. I love the little kind of case that it all comes in there, so pretty great. And I mean, it was a good price, and it was the last one that he had of this, so I thought I'd grab it. This one I've listened to most of, and it's fantastic. I really enjoy it. I don't know much about him. I think he ran a record label. Was it Benefer Editions, possibly, here in Canada, based out of Toronto, I want to say. Honestly, I'm not super familiar with him as an artist. My friend Fletcher turned me on to him as I've been doing these live streams, looking for people to get in touch with, trying to do the Twitch streams, rather. Got a third one coming up in October, shooting for, holy shit, October 3rd, which is coming sooner than later, actually. And I've got a bunch of people that are contributing to it, but I'm always looking for more people. And I just don't know. I've been kind of out of that scene sort of for a while, where I'm not right on top of who's out there, and especially when it comes to Canadian artists. So it's been good to get some input from people of who to reach out to. So yeah, this time so far, there's a couple of locals that are going to contribute, and then there's a couple other people that I've contacted that are contributing as well too. Yeah, it's been fun to do that and just kind of show pieces that people are just kind of flexing that creative muscle while we've been in lockdown and while we're still dealing with a pandemic of things. I feel like there was something else there, but now I've lost it. So maybe we'll go into this. So it was a bit of a day today. Anybody who watches us when we do our chats with Dr. Monkeybot and Larasa will have potentially seen, or those that have subscribed to Dr. Monkeybot's channel will have seen his video today, kind of saying goodbye. You know, it's such a strange feeling, you know, like when he first told us, I guess a week or two ago at this point. It was one of those things, like I was sitting afterwards eating dinner with the family, and my wife kind of said, you know, what's going on? And I kind of explained what was going on, and, you know, and she's like, how do you feel? I'm like, honestly, I don't really know. It's very, very strange. I mean, this whole thing, especially with just having my 8-year anniversary on this, like 8 years of doing these videos and talking to people and talking about comics and just kind of the intentions of why I got into it. It's weird when you kind of build these relationships with somebody that you've never met face to face. And I guess, you know, because I'm still of that generation, it feels like there's a separation here, right? So the relationships that you're going to have online. I mean, I was pretty active on message boards and stuff, especially when I was really digging into music. There was a couple of noise message boards. There was Southern Lord message board, and you know, all these kind of boards for just kind of chatting with people. But it was very, very surface. I would say that those were completely surface conversations. As far as you were talking about albums, you were talking about, there was some personal things that came into it sometimes, for sure, but there was a real separation. And I guess with this, I felt that there would be still that separation because it's this social media and our relationship with this social media. But so it kind of took me by surprise, you know, when he kind of broke the news to us. And again, it's not like he's not going to participate in social media. He said, you know, as he said in that video and said to us as well, he'll still be on Twitter. We'll still be able to talk to him, that sort of thing. It's not like he's gone by any stretch, but it still leaves this kind of weird feeling. And it was interesting as we were doing our as we were doing our stream, I was making notes as we were going because there was things that were popping into my mind, and I'm trying to do that more. I've been doing a lot more kind of Zoom meetings and that sort of thing, so I'm trying my best to uh, respect the format and let people talk. So write notes instead of interjecting, you know, that sort of thing. And there was a couple of things that came up. There was a lot of explanations and endings kind of conversation. I had made a note about the Rick Remender interview that I had watched where he was talking about explaining and coming up with endings as well, and comparing to like Lynch movies. Rasa had finished a couple of series and how that left her feeling, you know, after it was kind of done. And this really feels like a bit of a chapter, you know, like when the three of us kind of started talking to each other about doing a hangout to kind of deal with the lockdown, just as everybody was trying to deal with it in their own way. When we were discussing kind of hanging out on a weekly basis and talking comics and just hanging out, um, I didn't expect it to go on as long as it did, to be honest. I thought it would be a little bit of time, things would change, and, you know, we just kind of stuck with it, although it's getting harder and harder for me to do. It's still nice to try to make the time to sit and chat. So it's just a strange feeling today, seeing his video and seeing the emotion there for him. You know, it's something, and it just makes me kind of reflect on kind of all of this YouTube and all of these interactions and the way that I've kind of navigated through it and the way people navigate through this, especially when it comes to having these relationships with people that are really distant, you know, like I think of Spiro as well. Another great guy that I've met here on YouTube and in this kind of comic world that I've talked to him quite a bit. I think of everybody that I've kind of got to be friends with through this. And, you know, so it's a bit of a sad day that there's a finality to when you see like a video. If it would have been, not saying that, you know, do whatever you need to do. Absolutely. I understand wanting to kind of do a final goodbye. It kind of leaves, it's a different note though. And especially seeing him kind of talk about that on camera in that kind of raw way. Yeah, it was something. It hit me for sure. I mean, you know, I'm always sorry to see people go that I enjoy. And I mean, the whole landscape of YouTube and comics has really changed anyway, as we've spoken about a million times. I'm not going to go too much down that road, but, you know, he'll be missed for sure. Absolutely. And of course, we're going to keep in touch. And of course, you know, there's still some other forms of social media. And of course, I absolutely wish him the best. And it's been an absolute blast hanging out with the two of them on a weekly basis. Oh, Gore. Yeah, it was. For sure it was. I'm going to start doing this as well. I'm going to try to do this more because I was noticing, and you pop in, Gore, and watch the video that you sent the link to, and I noticed that the chat was gone. So I wonder if that happens with all the videos. So maybe it's worth popping up the chat so it kind of embeds in the video. But yeah, and I mean, those kind of things are sad, right? And with the ones that have happened in the past, sometimes people end up coming back, and sometimes it's due to kind of like some drama thing that may be going on YouTube, or at least in my YouTube experience, I've seen that a number of times where it's just some sort of bullshit has been happening and people just want to say fuck it and I'm wrapping it up. This is a different kind of finality. You know, this is truly a I just can't do this with the things that are going on. So yeah, it's something. It was moving for sure. I was surprised at how moving it was actually. And I think that part of it just kind of took me by surprise as well, and makes me rethink my kind of interaction with people and what this almost like video blogging has done, even though it has just been about talking about comics and, you know, as Adam said, some way of kind of cataloging and, hey, check this out, you know, look what I found today, isn't this awesome? You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. And I don't really know when that transition happened to something more. I can't really pinpoint it. I think it was just this gradual thing, right? But yeah. So yeah, that was that. So I mean, one of the things that will come out of this for sure is like these live streams that I just do. I mean, I don't know the last time I've done a pre-recorded. Might have been one of the Eclipse videos or something. I honestly don't remember. I love doing this. I love doing the YouTube. I love doing the interactions with people. I love doing the hangouts and chats. So for sure, Rasa and I are going to still get together, and maybe it'll involve other people. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll just be the two of us. I just know that it won't happen for a couple of weeks, just because of things that are piling up here. We're digging up our side yard. We're putting in a patio, and we obviously, especially living here in the prairies in the frozen north, there's a limited there's a limited window. And as we creep closer and closer to October, I mean, generally for the most part, by the time Halloween hits, we already have snow on the ground, and that's sometimes been there for a day, sometimes the day of, sometimes a week. So our window is really closing. We've made some really good progress, and we can see the finish line a little more, which is great. But so that's going to take some focus for sure. So I don't think it's going to be a couple of weeks till that happens. But we will plan on doing something for sure. And like I said, absolutely, it'll be Rasa and myself, and then we'll see what it evolves into. But I would love to do, we can do that actually, Gore. We can put some furniture out there. It's going to be a sizable patio. Maybe at some point I'll even do what some of the other YouTubers do a video from outside. I think sometimes many of us talk with one another on YouTube more than with people we personally know, and it has to do with comics and the stories we enjoy. Yeah, for sure. And I wonder if that's part of it too. That's one of the things, like, stories are such a big part of our culture as human beings, I would say, across the world and throughout time, that there's something else attached to sharing these stories. Because when I was watching that video, they were talking about, like, the subtext there, Gore. The matching of, you know, you got these three layers. He's talking about the text, he's talking about the images, and you're talking about overlaying them and seeing what else will come out of that. And I mean, subtext is a huge thing for me. It is throughout, you know, my reading, throughout my film life. I always, that subtext sometimes is the meat of the story. And I think sometimes that subtext is a very personal thing for sure, because you're going to bring your own perspectives to it. But I think that sometimes that subtext can be a little more overt, and people are kind of latching onto it. So with us sharing these stories with each other and sharing these perspectives, and potentially, it doesn't have to be political per se, but sharing kind of perspectives that may be political or philosophical, and that attachment that we have to people who like those same stories, I think builds that bond a little differently than, like I was saying before, that comparison to message boards where it's all very surface. We're sharing some, you know, I haven't shared a ton of my personal life. I share maybe a little bit more than some other people on YouTube, but I don't feel like I've shared a lot. And when I think of a guy like Adam, he hasn't shared a lot at all. You know, there's people who, and like yourself, Gore, who don't even share their face, never mind kind of their personal life. So just creates this interesting thing with these, just sharing these stories and sharing this art together. What kind of different bond that is. So so the Rasa, oh, that was the other thing. So because he's kind of moving on, and he's going to be either privatizing, deleting his video, whichever he's going to do, the videos that we've done together will be gone. The three of us are done, which is fine. There's again, that's completely fine. But I do want to kind of, I don't know, I may want to introduce every once in a while a conversation about a book or two that we did talk about in those chats, because I still think part of this for me is still that archiving, and still that talking about books that potentially nobody else is talking about, or someone might stumble on. As I've said many times on this channel, that's the one thing that thrills me the most of all of this stuff, including my collecting habits and including my hunting for stuff. I love that kind of idea of this unsurfacing something that you didn't expect. I try to do it with my radio show as well too, where every week it's a different, there's a whole bunch of different music either within the episode itself, or I might do an episode where we focus on kind of, you know, dungeon synth, or one that's like grindcore and heavy metal, or one that's like, you know, love songs and ballads, and one that's like early electronic music, or whatever it is, right? This idea of the unexpected, and this idea of possibly discovering something that you didn't realize was out there, or looking for that one book to see what people have said about it. So I will be trying to do some of that. And the one that I definitely wanted to do today, and I mean, this will absolutely be a repeat for some people, but it's kind of stuck with me, to be honest. This A Small Killing from Alan Moore and Oscar Zarate, like karate. It stuck with me because, I don't know, there was something there for me. Again, this will be a repeat for some of you, but the basic premise is a guy that works in advertising, and he's been given the task of creating an advertising campaign for a pop that they're going to be releasing in Russia, the USSR, and he's been given the I don't know, case. He's been given the file. He's been given the client, I guess, looking for the right word for it, because he's had some very successful ad campaigns in the past, and one of his most successful was for a car, and he's going back thinking about how he came to that advertisement and reliving sections of his life. And when the reveal finally happens of what the Mr. Gretzky, hello, when the reveal finally happens of what the advertisement was, it just kind of has this extra impact. And the way that it's laid out, each chapter kind of starts going backwards in time. So we're starting out with, even though the story itself is moving linearly, like he's moving through time forward, but each chapter, the like New York 1985 to 1989, the time periods that are here on the title cards are kind of where his mind is at, and what he's kind of reliving from his past. So London 1979 to 1985. William Smallwood, hello. And I just think it's an absolutely beautiful book, and I love the art. And then there's this kind of, I don't know, misty quality to some of the art when he starts thinking back about certain memories. There was some really good stuff that I didn't quite find the last time, and I'm going to try one more time here tonight to see. There was some very cool panel and page layouts where things just flowed really nicely. And there's one that I'm thinking about specifically, and I don't know if I'm going to find it. There we go. I did find it. So these two pages, and this is what I was looking for during the other live stream. These two pages here where he's in a party. One of the things that happens throughout this book is he keeps seeing this child that looks like, to him, that is following him and looks very sinister. At one point early on, he ends up having a conversation with this child, and the child basically says, I want to kill you. And I'm not going to go too much farther with that because I don't want to spoil the end. But at that one point, he spots the child at a party, and he starts fighting his way through the crowd. And as we move through the crowd, there's a fight breaking out, and there's cops on their way, and kind of chaos is ensuing. And then we get to this page, and they even use an arrow just to point out, so it's not too Where's Waldo-ish. He's moving from the top of the panel and moving through the page. So, you know, just using the bodies and the people as the panels but still giving you a sense of the entire space. I was really impressed with that, and it read incredibly well. The other thing that happens throughout this is anytime he's in a party situation or there's a bunch of people around, we get these yellow word balloons, and it's the conversations of everybody, just giving you some atmosphere, the conversations of everybody that's happening around him. And I found, like, at first I started reading each of them really carefully. As I got further into story, I started skimming through them faster, and I found that that really worked a lot better, sort of skimming through them, catching some words. Now, I mean, it is Alan Moore, so possibly there's some kind of another dimension of meaning in there too, when we're talking about those layers like we were just a little bit ago. But I just started skimming through them, and I found it worked a lot better. It started to feel like this background noise, and it started kind of putting me in the place of it even more. So the other thing that he pointed out in that video there, Gore, was that idea of when you're reading comics, the reader is determining the pacing, right? So kind of even just changing that pacing for myself, I don't know, it worked. And like I said, I've kind of thought about this book since I put it down. Just want to show this. So this is Sheffield, 1964 to 1979. And I just love that introduction page there, where you're really getting, you know, those are wet pages. Those pages don't have a spot of dryness. And especially when we're coming from this kind of imagery here directly into that. So I'm very impressed. I was very impressed, and I would like to, I still haven't done it, I just haven't had time. I still would love to hunt down these online just to see what they are, see what we got going on there. This VG Graphics from Dark Horse. I don't know much about it. I don't know if these were the only 4 titles that VG Graphics put out, but if you see this, I would highly recommend it. Well worth picking up. And yeah, so that's the main one that I wanted to talk about tonight. And then just briefly talking about Hedra, that I know has been on a bunch of people's channels, and the breakdown of the panels in this one and how the storytelling is done here was pretty impressive to me as well. It didn't stick with me like that other one did, but I can appreciate this inventiveness. And again, the Druillet style imagery there, I love to pieces. I just really appreciate this kind of attempt at trying to tell a story, wordless first of all, and then using the panels as kind of part design, part storytelling. This is a great example of the storytelling. As you're moving through the space, you're following the panels almost like a maze to go around, and, you know, weaving into the tunnels and through the middle of this mountain. Very, very cool, really impressive, and the art style really works for me. And the idea of, again, the passing off of the technology from one kind of species, I guess, or planetary being to another. I mean, even when the panels cut into the rock faces themselves, there's this just commitment to the grid being on the page, whether you can see the borders or not, and interacting with the imagery as these kind of snapshots or whatever. Pretty impressive. Definitely glad a place like Image and some of these companies are willing to take chances on some of this stuff, and give these other creators a voice. Let's do this as I'm remembering. One of the things I liked about Hedra was the mystery. There was much to think about after reading it. Yeah, absolutely. It does feel like it's a bit of a snapshot. Like I said, I don't know if it if it gave me as much to think about afterwards. I definitely thought about it for sure once I put it down, and I think I flipped through it again as soon as I finished reading it as well. Just kind of revisit a couple of pages. It more appealed to me in kind of the storytelling method. This one, I found that I wasn't thinking about it too much afterwards. Which again, that's not a criticism by any stretch. It's still really solid, and it was still really enjoyable. I would say that the Alan Moore book has stuck with me with a fairly firm grasp. That's for sure. I think that's going to be it for this one. Oh, the other one that I've never talked about. Oh, I guess there's these two. Let's just do these two. I didn't talk about it too much on the chat, I don't think. But this is the Alexis Zarit, Fabian Rangel Jr. and Evelyn Rangel Tarantula hardcover. And this was purely eye candy. And especially, you know, it's funny, the context of talking about some of these things. After talking about the Alan Moore and after talking about Hedra, I've talked about it before that for me, art is kind of number one. But it's when you read something that has an impact, and then I start talking about something like this where I couldn't tell you the first thing about this story. I read it. I swear to you, I read it. I read every single page. I read every single word. I couldn't tell you the first goddamn thing about it. Pulp kind of hero, having to save somebody or other, you know what I mean? Like, it was a fun enough read, but honestly, like, beyond Space Riders, I don't know how much, because I know that Zarit has another book that he's doing art for. I don't know if he's writing it as well. I don't remember what it's called, unfortunately. But I was contemplating picking that up at one point, and kind of after reading this, I'm like, I'm probably good without it. You know, I love his art. His visual style appeals to me by leaps and bounds. It's really incredible, but this was just a dull book. I can't say that I would recommend it unless you were incredibly into his art and you wanted to be a completist as far as getting everything a certain artist has created. Then go for it. But honestly, I wouldn't be bothered too much. And the one that surprised me a little in how much I enjoyed it, similar along those lines, not exactly an earth-shaking story by any stretch. It's called Revenger. You can probably guess what it's about. So she's kind of an assassin for hire that's going to right the wrongs. And she's hired by, and this one I read quite a while ago, and I remember a couple of details about it. So that tells you something right there. She's hired by a family whose daughter has been kidnapped and has been put into sex trafficking and pornography. So the Revenger is hired, called, and told the story and says, I'm going to do this for free. And the story unfolds from there, and it's really violent. And the art is fucking incredible because it's that kind of naive style that I really respond to. And the way the characters move through the panels, like this 3 panels is a great, you know, the motion in that, cutting to her already leaping in the air, landing, and pulling the hammer out of this guy's head, you know, like, incredible stuff. Really, really, really great stuff. Very enjoyable. Volume 1, so I imagine there's a volume 2. But I haven't looked as of yet. Maybe I won't show you that end part there. Yeah, so a really fun read. Again, we're not breaking new territory with something like this, but I don't think you need to. Sometimes good pulpy goodness or good exploitation goodness is well worth it. I read the first 2 issues of Wonder Woman Dead Earth. Sorry. Book 1, Book 2. It went 4 books, correct? So I have the first 2 that I've read, and I thought I bought issue 4, but I don't seem to have it in that pile there. And I can't find issue 3. I haven't looked at all the shops in town yet. I've looked at a couple, and I can't seem to find issue 3. So I've only read the first 2. And I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. I think I might have talked about it in Dr. Monkey Bots in our hangout. The thing that sold me, I mean, first of all, Daniel Warren Johnson's art is fucking incredible. And I mean, since you brought it up, let's open it up and have a quick look, because the thing that sold me about it was on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, I don't know, it looks like page 10-ish, when she finally figures out where she is and goes upstairs to find that image. As soon as I saw that image, I was sold. Like, I'm on board. It's like, okay, so clearly this is its own thing. As I know Black Label is, from what I understand, it's nothing to do with continuity. It's doing whatever you want. It's doing stuff that are maybe, you know, is that the Wonder Woman Wang imagery on the front there? Like, it's doing stuff that's a little more aimed at adults. And these first 2 books I thought were incredible. His art is incredible. His YouTube channel is pretty fantastic. I haven't watched a ton of videos on his, but I have hung out a couple of times during a live stream where he's doing some art commissions. Seems like a great guy. And I really want to read the other 2. And like I said, I was sure that I picked up book 4, but I don't seem to have it anywhere close by, so maybe I didn't. But it is one that I absolutely want to finish. No, that's Daredevil. Ah, yes, I did pick up book 4. There it is right there. Okay, so that's good. So I just need book 3. So I'll continue my hunt and see if I can find it. The last thing, I'm on volume 6. I took a bit of a break from reading Akira. This is the final volume. I pulled it off the shelf and it's sitting beside me because I'm probably going to start in this tonight and actually more than likely finish it. Even though they're these beefy volumes, I'm still amazed at how fast it reads. And this has been, it's been super fun. I haven't read this a million times. This is probably my only my second time reading it. And the form that I have it previously, I don't have all those issues, especially, maybe not especially, but I'm pretty sure the ones that I was missing were more from this last, that would be included in this last volume. So I'm looking forward to digging into this because it's just been fun. And in book 5, I just finished that off this afternoon. I had a little bit more of that one to finish off. When the Americans show up in this kind of new Tokyo and the citizens have kind of coming out of the rubble to kind of, they want to show their power again to their citizens. They're going to feed them a whole bunch of drugs like they've been doing with their food, going to show their power, and the Americans start coming in, and that little dynamic there was really incredible. And this, like, just the amount of, see if I can find a good one here. Looks like it's a bunch of interiors. There's not as much cityscapes in that one. I mean, if you know the story, the amount of panels in book 5 where it's destruction and destruction and destroyed building and collapsing building and rubble, and the amount of work that goes into that I'm literally reading in about a second and a half. Yeah, no, there's a lot of interior and a lot of Tetsuo transforming into the giant blobby baby. Is incredible. It's an incredible feat. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to finishing this off. Once I finish it off, I know the Kayfabe guys did a bunch of videos where they talked about each of the volumes. So once I'm finished this, I'll probably go back and watch that video for number 6 just to get their take on it. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm looking forward to it because there is a sense of that sadness even through those first two issues, even though it kind of, you know, we get into that kind of gladiator-ish type battle. Um, yeah, I'm very curious to see what he does with it. He's a creator that was completely off of my radar. I can't say that I'd heard of him, and I think it was Adam. Again, this is the Adam episode. I think it was Adam that turned me onto his channel to begin with as well too. And I know that I've seen him in the chat there once or twice. Um, so yeah, I hope he does more, because I would love to see what else he's got to say. Honestly, I think that's about it. Thanks very much, Gore, for hanging out. Mr. Gretzky, thank you. William Smallwood, thank you very much. Who else was there? That was it. Have a good evening, everybody. Like I said, it'll be a couple of weeks, but Rasa and I definitely will be back. One of the next videos that I will be doing when I get a tiny bit of a break is I'm still finishing building that synthesizer. I now have, I believe I have all the components that came in the mail at this point weeks ago now. I just haven't had a chance to sit with it. I'm so close to being done. I do want to sit and finish off that video for this Lyra 8 and get that thing up and running. I'm excited to film and record some sounds with that, and hopefully I haven't completely shit the bed in the build, so we'll find out. Good to see you as well, Gore. We'll talk to you all later. Have a good night.